Okay, so this piece right here, it's beautiful, it's lovely, but there are a couple of issues with its composition and with its direction. So what we have is, these are I'm just going to name the issues as we go, and I'm going to sort of cover why they're issues. All right? So this, um, this, really, really parallel, and sort of this area here of the body, and I think that's it. The kind of spine feels a little stiff as well. I would love to see the spine with a little bit more movement. But let's go over these. The brightness that you have here, as you know, focal points are the 100% of the face, of the painting, right? So they're 100% contrast, they're 100% detail, they're 100% part of the, like, any angles or lines that are pointing toward that. They're kind of within it. They're the target of any lines or lines of vision or composition lines that point to the center. They are the center of the golden ratio. They're the center of the rule of thirds. They're pretty much the the point of the painting. It's the object of the painting, the story that the painting is trying to express. All right, it's not an empty canvas. It's a canvas with something in it. So when we have stuff like this and stuff like this and things like this, what happens is the focal point becomes shared, and then you can share focal points, but they have to be on different levels. So you have a primary focal point, a secondary focal point, and a tertiary focal point. This cannot be, they cannot share the same intensity. So this cannot be, if this is 100% detail, this has to be 70% of that detail, and this has to be 60% of that detail. So at the end, this is a significantly decrease in detail and contrast compared to the focal point number one. So this is focal point number one right here. So this object, and this object cannot share anything that this object has. So all of the contrast has to be brought back here. All of the detail has to be brought back here. So if we're not seeing her lashes, but we're seeing these tiny little beads, that doesn't make sense. All right, that's not possible. And we want to think like photographers. We're photographers, but we can't find the object we want to photograph, so we have to paint it. That's pretty much how you have to think. But you still have to follow the rules of composition and the rules of, the reality and how objects are visible and how light reveals detail. So when the light is brought up here in such extremity, it's taking attention away from this image. And not just that, there is almost zero expression. Now, I know that expression can be cheesy, so we avoid it. I know that a smile can look a little bit intense and too happy. Sometimes we don't feel happy. We want to draw something that looks a little bit solemn or content. But this face right here is not solemn still or content stillness. It's very, very like a android kind of expression. So what I want to see is a little bit more expression here. Expression both in the fact that it's looking at an object. So what's she looking at? She should be looking at one of these objects so that the line of vision connects to other objects and completes the composition. So I'm going to adjust all of these right now. Also, her hands are her arms are very stiff, very parallel. It does not work when we do this. If I tried to do that exact expression, like I'm trying to catch some floating flowers in front of me, I'd probably be all over the place. My arms would not be symmetrical because one hand would probably go to this one and one hand would probably go to this one. So this one should be a little bit lower with a little bit more gentle of a hand. And this one should be a little bit higher, trying to catch this one before it floats away. So you have to get the arms that you're drawing have to be involved in the props around them. They can't just be stiff and you expect the viewer to do the rest. You want to make the organic organism right here feel natural. So if she's having this stiff face, almost zero expression, and these stiff arms, she feels more like an android. So here's the rub. You can work with it. You can ignore everything that I'm saying, and you can go in and bring in some Android type adjustments here to make her feel like she's actually an android. And that really would work. That really would. I know that's probably not what you want to do, but that really would work. She does really feel like a Barbie doll that's stuck, and she's kind of having her first experience with nature or something like that, like an android experiencing life for the first time, especially because the title is called Reach Me. Really, really sensitive topic. So you can play with it like that. If it's just a normal human in the flesh, no android to it, then there are some changes you have to make. So let's add these changes. Okay, so darken. Most importantly, we want to focus the attention back. Oops, wrong brush. Focus all the attention back to the focal point. And we always want to frame our canvas. She's in a dark room and the only sources of light are these little floating flowers, these glowing lights, these minor light sources. So we want to express that. Alright? Another thing we don't want to do, because she's got 1, 2, 3. All of these are pretty intense lights. So what they're going to do is cancel out a lot of the shadow that's happening here. This isn't a tiny little light ember that's causing a tiny little secondary diffuse. No, this light is almost as big as this one. They're almost the same size. So that means they're going to fight each other. And what's going to happen is the face's shadows, especially because she's a female. When you photograph females, you always want to make the shadows a little bit softer. Her face shadows are going to be much more soft and much more diffused. There is too much shadow on her face considering the amount of lighting floating around. So the shadow in her eye socket, especially in the area, like you can get away with shadows up here because that's where makeup goes in. You know, a lot of people just fake these and add in makeup there, but on the side of the nose, right along here, this is facing her face directly, so her cheek isn't going to have this shadow. You painted this as if there's a light coming in this way, but it's such a dark room and these are the only sources of light, that wouldn't happen. So stay consistent, and the way to avoid this is while you're drawing, like I know maybe you didn't sketch this and you started drawing the eye, then the face came, and then the nose, and then you added these cool lights, and then you added her hair, and then you had a finished piece. If you want to go that route, if you want to paint paintings like that, you have to remember the light source you originally chose, you have to stick to it. You can't deviate from it or else the painting will no longer make sense. The way to get a really cool looking painting that looks really nice and you get crazy feedback from your viewers is to keep the light source consistent. That's really the best way. The most attractive paintings are paintings that have a unified light source. So I'm leaving some of these shadows here because there's some makeup. And what I'm going to do now is choose the drop tool, the exact color coming out of this light source. And that's the color I'm going to add everywhere. The object adapts both the color, the light source's brightness and the light source's color. Alright, so I'm going to make a new layer. Really important that we remember not to just suddenly change light sources halfway through because we're done with the face. Sometimes we think the face is separate from the light source. It just has its own light source traveling with it. That's not how it works. A face is part of as much a part of the room as any other object floating inside. So what I'm doing now is, especially down here, the shadow under the nose, this light is way too close. If there was a primary light source, a universal light source coming out of somewhere, this would have been so strong to diffuse it. Strong enough to diffuse it. And what I want to do is the high points, every peak on the face that I know is a peak gets this light source color. So everyone repeat that back. I always make you guys repeat this. Objects inherit the light source's color as well as the light source's intensity. Okay. Just continuing these shadows right here. And any areas that have extra shine to them get a little bit more of this light. And you see this right here? This area, this shadow gets diffused because there has to be a severe primary light source traveling through, or else this would really take control of the painting. That's why I'm drop tooling both its color and its brightness and bringing that in. Any areas that are naturally shiny are going to get a little bit more light to them. So under here, this gets really bright because that skin is very oily. The eye is a moving joint, so it constantly needs to be lubricated like an engine. So the skin directly around the eye, which is really flexible to allow it to move, is really, really shiny and really stretched out. Like an organ, no, like those French instruments I always forget. Accordion. Okay, so the shadows here are a little bit too dark, and that's pretty much what's happening. Is we want to soften all of these shadows. We really do want to soften them. And we bring in the secondary light source. The secondary light source is pretty strong, so what we'll have is a clash running right across her face. Okay. The neck is a little bit stretched out. We'll look at the before and after. We need this clash right here. I could open up Portrait Studio and show you guys how that clash happens, but it really just happens along the edge of the face. Just along the edge. So wherever that third quarter starts, the outer quarters, I mean, that's pretty much where it sits. And it's a really, really strong reflection because skin is very reflective but also matte at the same time, so you just have to choose the right amount. And the skin here kind of connects to the, if we merge everything down, kind of connects to the neck just a little bit. So it's not a complete edge. She'd have to be really, really skinny, not at the body type she's in right now, to have that extreme edge. So we want to connect the skin here because that's where the head connects back in. Right along here. Okay? So we'll look at the before and after. We're responding a little bit better. Actually, let me just jump into the liquefier real quick and show you a little bit. What we never want to do, if we're ever like hosting a photo shoot and we're like the, I don't know, the beauty editor or the beauty director or whatever roles are in photo shoots, but we never want to have the model's forehead, for no reason, function or fashion or whatever, have her forehead a little bit smaller than usual. Usually foreheads are that thing that is really always showed off with photographing models, because it's just a really big part of the beauty. It's a really big part of the silhouette of the face as the hair frames it. Hair does a lot with foreheads. So when we have hair just swooping down and she really isn't doing any upward motion in water, it doesn't feel natural. You're doing something that doesn't really, count that much for the function of the painting, and you're losing beauty for it. So it's, her little hair curve, it doesn't matter where it starts as long as it just curves and follows the line of sight. So we want to show off as much of her forehead as possible before, sort of just under the hairline a little bit. That'll reveal more of her beauty. Before it was a little low, if you can see. And it was low for no reason. I mean, it didn't have to be that low. If I was the photographer, I would wait until if she was in water for the hair to be just a little bit above her forehead so we can see some of her forehead. It's a big part of the face. So, before, after. Now this light is more involved. It's way more involved in this. If it was this dark in here, so we have all this extra shadow that feels like makeup because there's just too much light around to allow this much shadow, it had to be painted in. So now it feels a little bit more natural, especially considering all these lights just bouncing around, revealing all kinds of shadows. And now we have the third shadow to consider. So this third light, that's much bigger than the rest of them. So we have to, again, find that shadow and respond to it. Find that light and respond to it. So we're going to cast another shadow. And then erase that shadow and make it as sharp as it needs to be. And that's the nose's shadow on the rest of the face as cast by this. But we're not going to make it this intense. We're going to soften it up a little bit. So you see we're responding to light by light. And that's what makes this image, that's what's going to make it believable, that she's actually in a room. So I'm going to get the soft brush real quick. And just soften that shadow up as if we really are in a room with all of these shadows in it. And then finally, when it comes to drawing lips, do not over outline. It really makes the lips feel very unnatural. And if she is in a blue wash, so she's in a room, so how do you determine the wash? It's the color of the light source. That's the wash of the room. The wash of the room is blue. Her lips should be a little bit more purple. This red you have here is a little bit too warm for me, and it's not really red anymore. It's not a natural color. So what I would do is find the wash, stay in this zone, go up to the purple, sort of like the fuchsia colors, and then saturate along that same grayscale line. And just keep staying closer and closer to the blue until I know it's matching. I'm looking at this color right here. I'm matching this to this. We just want to find that perfect spot where the lips really feel like they're blush and they're natural. I'm just bringing a little bit more purple, and I'm going to carry that same blush color right across the cheeks. And the face is going to start looking natural more and more. A little bit of reds on the brow bone and a little bit on the nose. Just a bit. We don't want it monochromatic, but we also don't want it too colorful. So again, I'm just getting that wash color of the surrounding blues, and I'm just going to run that over the lips. And allow this to sort of take its place. We have more controlled colors. You have to match the colors along the wash, or else they won't feel natural. And I think those are some big changes. Her face feels a little bit more bright, a little bit more curious now that we raised her eyebrows up. And we gave her a little bit more of an expression. What I recommend next is choosing which of these lights she's looking at. So we really have to change her gaze. It's going to be really, really difficult. Let me see if I can do it. So usually when an eye looks at an object in the foreground, the eyes cross just a little. What you can do is lower this just a little bit. And if you can't lower it, just try to get the eyes to match. So when they meet at a point, that's where they cross. If it's a close by point. Okay, and when I'm looking at a light source, I naturally squint, so I'm just going to apply that right here. Just a very, very delicate squint. Keeping the eyes symmetrical along the same symmetry line, so these eyes were a little bit asymmetrical. Just squinting just a little bit, like whenever you look at a light, you're always going to squint. It's just your eye's natural reaction to protect itself. So it's just going to squint just a little bit. And that squint adds to the expression, makes her feel a little bit more delicate, more natural, more human. Expressions bring lots of humanity to your portraits. So don't think that just sitting there making like a really sort of like emotionless face is sort of dignified portraiture. It's not. I mean, it can be. So before, after, now she's looking at an object in the foreground. It can be very dignified to not bring in overly like caricature expressions. It can be a little bit much for portraiture, especially if you want to just stay a portraiture artist. Too much, it's going to look like pinup, like you're always doing pinup if there's always too much expression. So you want to think of that, but you also don't want to always paint the android face. You want to bring in some kind of minimal expression, and that's the trend now, just to always think like that. Minimal expression, allowing the model's beauty to sort of take the stage. I'm going to do just something very small. She seems like she's in wonder. So there might be, like if you're looking at floating flowers, I mean, how would your face be? So there might be just a little bit of an expression, just an expression of wonder. I'm going to lower her lip just a little. So before, after, just so that the eyes are a part, the lips are a part of the eyes and what the eyes are saying. Very little do we express emotion just with our eyes, and our lips do nothing. Usually it's a whole face kind of relationship. Okay. And then the Cupid's bow just needs some light on it because it's facing the light source. Sorry I'm not looking at any of the comments. I'm so sorry. This is just quite a thorough critique today. Okay, so I softened the corner of the lips, and now I'm just going to bring it in gently. Just like, maybe not that way, 'cause now I'm changing the face. Just enough that it really feels like an indentation into her cheek as she smiled. Instead of a tail. You know how we have, sometimes we draw tails that, for lips that look like this. We forget to get rid of this tail. I want to always just try to, as much as possible, get rid of that tail as I draw and as I critique. Just having it hover, sort of a shadow or a halo of the form of the lips, kind of just overlapping each other. And then darkening the lips, just the teeth just a little bit. The nostrils feel a little bit, I guess, asymmetrical. Not really asymmetrical, but they don't match the end of the nostril. So the nostril hole and the nostril orbit, I guess, they don't really match. I'm just matching all the light sources here. Really the most important thing is just that light on the cheek and how the different shadows, how the different light sources create overlapping multiple shadows. It's so important to remember the cast shadows. And I'm going to bring in just a little bit more contrast with Dodge Tool. And a little bit more contrast with Burn. So before, after. The squint in the eyes, I think, is really what's doing it. She really feels like she's in wonder. Before, it's very, very emotionless, almost no reaction. It's very similar to if you don't have any control over your, like if someone has a stroke and they have no control over their muscles, half their face will never do any kind of expression forever. That's what it feels like. If your portrait looks like that, it means you don't have enough experience with expressions. You need to go in there and study some expressions. Get yourself a vocabulary for expressions so that when you draw another face, you can talk in expressions. If you don't have a vocabulary for expressions, how will you express them? You won't. You'll have faces that look like android faces that don't speak anything human about them, especially if they're surrounded by glowing flowers. You really want your character to be a part of that, to feel the wonder, so we can feel the wonder as the viewer. If she's feeling nothing, why should I? Okay? So a couple of changes. Her face has been changed because these shadows on either side of the face are really, really strong. I haven't touched her bone structure, which was a little bit masculine, but females can have this, and it's fine. You can get away with it. I recommend jumping into some more contrast and aligning the nostrils just a little bit more. But the face really does feel a little bit more human and more involved in its surrounding light sources. There's brightness everywhere. It's like you're in a shower of light. You have to show the face as being flooded with that light. You really have to think like a photographer. So let's see what everyone is saying. Vroom Vroomer, we're just talking about unifying light sources. Yes, Katie Ritchie, the jaw was jutting just a little bit. There's just a little bit, what I talked about last time, just a little bit of an underbite. But again, those are so small, people can have these kinds of faces. Yeah, Jeffrey's right, she has a bit of an underbite, but that's really it. I wouldn't change it completely. Thanks, Jeff. People should be much smaller then. Not smaller when you want to create focus, just squinted towards a nearby area. So now she looks like she's looking at this, where before she was looking like here. Like follow my mouse, that's where she was looking at the mouse. But now she looks like she's looking here at the mouse and the flower. Okay, so these are my major corrections. Get the light to be a little bit more involved with your character. When you initially paint the eye, you're studying the eye, something got you to starting the face. Remember that thing that you're using to reveal the face is the light, and that thing should be consistent throughout your drawing. And if she does have pockets of light in her hair, like there's some of these flowers got caught in her hair, which is really, really cute, you want to choose some of these areas to illuminate. So you don't want to illuminate so much you're fighting against the light source. You just want to fighting against the focal point. You just want to find different pockets and just, without jumping into no man's land, show off where these little pieces have caught in her hair. Okay? So just enough that they're minor, even like tertiary level illuminations. A little bit of extra light at the very center to show the hot spot of those floating orbs. Okay? So does anyone have any questions or comments about this critique? Okay. Light is an additive. You really have to consider each one individually and then compound them. Yes, absolutely. I like how she uses color. That's the one thing. Oh, I don't know if you guys are talking about the same thing. Okay. Late again. It's okay, Lon. Since with bright light pupils get smaller. Oh yes, definitely more sieve. Yes, they do. The opposite of dilate, right? Okay. So before, see how that light was so demanding of your attention? It was no man's land. And you didn't even hit no man's land on the face. I mean, if you want to hit no man's land anywhere, Lena, you hit it on the face. Because that's the only time where, yeah, okay, I do want to look in that area, so I guess I'll forgive you for giving me that much light to deal with. That would be what your viewer would say. But over here, you have all this work here, and you have this one random couple of brushstrokes, and you're giving them all the light. Does not work like that. Big rule that was broken. The excess in shadows on the face represented a different kind of light source. So now it's a little bit more friendly, more user-friendly, the way you've kind of brought everything together. And areas like this that have lost a lot of light and a lot of form because of the darkness, throw in a couple more of these floaty orbs and reveal some of these right here. Maybe throw in a new color because it seems a bit monochromatic. I mean, we did add the purples, but it seems just a bit monochromatic. Throw another one down here, and we get a nice arm reveal on this side, a little bit on her stomach, and on the rest of her body. So we can still, there are so many opportunities to accurately, scientifically accurately make everything make sense again and unify the image. All right, just because you drew a face does not mean that face gets its own light source and that's it. Everything else is just an accessory. No, they all work together as one big flowing unit. Light is like fog that we don't see, but only if it hits another object. So if light is fog and you have three light sources in the same room, those objects that those three light sources would hit, all of those objects are going to behave very differently because of those three different main sources of fog in the room. You have to think of it all as one big room. That's what's going to create dynamic concepts compositions like this, where the light really feels like it's really floating on her face. And that's the biggest change here between the before and after. Okie dokes. All right. Alright, so let's just wait until this decides to close, which will never happen. Okay. Light is a box of chocolates. Why is Photoshop doing this? Why are you freaking out on me, Photoshop? Not responding. Okay, well let's just wait here. Let's see what happens, eh? Alright, there we go. So this is a concept for a landscape, really, really different, but I did want to talk about color. The color is awesome. I love the greens that you chose. I love everything that you chose. I do want to see some kind of remnant of the light source that is revealing this tree. So, I mean, this castle. So it seems like it's a very, very bright castle. So what happens is I'm so tempted to bring in some of those famous shadows that cut across an entire landscape. And I'm just so tempted to bring that in right now with a nice purple. So you have a purple in there. You have all these pretty early morning or late day kind of greens in the forest. So I wanted to talk a little bit about where to really use these purples. So you're tempted to use some purples and use them really well. You've balanced your colors beautifully. The only issue left now is sort of what we're doing with the rest of the painting. Let me just... connect those. Alright, so there's this amazing cool shadow that you can use. I'm going to get the purple that you already have in here. It's just the sunset's shadow or the sunrise's shadow across a mountain or something running across half the image. And I'm going to find a cool filter to use with this so that it kind of works as a darken and the color. So maybe this one works just fine. I'm going to select the inverse of that. Did I deselect? Oh my god, I hate this fucking tablet. I deselected, right? And what did I end up with? Multiply. Alright, so I don't want to deselect. Select inverse, and then over here in a new layer I'm going to bring in a yellow. So I'm going to use the basic rules we already have in landscapes. I'm just going to exaggerate them just a little bit the way we see with like Pixar movies or something like that. So now we have this beautiful separation between areas that are touched by light and areas that aren't touched by light. And the very peaks of this castle are getting that big reveal of light. So what we want to do now is just match it to the preset sort of values that you have everywhere. So it's still the same composition. What's happened now is that it's a little bit more involved with the light source, involved with the sunlight, with its environment. Actually 0, what am I doing? Okay, and then here I'm going to saturate it just a little bit more for more purple. Now it's looking like what's that awesome Disney movie? Sleeping Beauty, the Sleeping Beauty landscapes that they had there. Oh, they were so pretty. And I'm just cleaning up the area here. And you can do this in different degrees. You can make it this low in opacity. It doesn't really matter. But you see how it feels like daytime. And what's revealing all this daytime light? There has to be something. So it's either you do dim everything and we have this daytime light, or we have this midday or sort of like sunset or sunrise, or you don't use this shadow and you start revealing some light cast shadows everywhere else. So because this room is so dark, that's why I would say instead of having to change everything, just stick to this and adjust it in your own way, which looks so much more dramatic, so much more cool, and you don't have to use that purple everywhere. It's just important that you've used it on the castle. Everywhere else is pretty okay. You don't really have to force it to be that dark. You can break so many rules and get away with it with lighting. You just have to follow the stuff that you cannot break. So I'm going to blur this shadow just a little bit because of course the mountain should be some ways away. If it's right under the mountain, then it really wouldn't make sense. And just on the edge of that shadow we have, it just needs to be a little bit dark, we have the saturation line, my favorite thing in the world. Okay, just on the edge of the shadow we have that saturation. And over here in these whites, you can hit white, you can hit like no man's land with this, just as long as you're staying within the cube. So this side of the cube here is what's getting the light. Okay, so that's what we're going to be giving all that illumination. Oopsie, midtones, protect tones. So that's what's going to get these kinds of whites right here. You can use those here. You can use this in this environment because you're telling me that that's where the light comes in. So you can go ahead and go wild with the no man's land because you are breaking all the other rules. You might as well have fun with it. Okay, so that's the stuff you can do. You can also make the background just a little bit lighter, just along the bottoms of the horizon. Break another rule. You see, we can break all the rules. Kind of looking like a Samurai Jack landscape. Just at the very base of it, and now you have this like cool base lighting behind the castle, so it's looking even more like a Beauty and the Beast landscape. So you have the sort of really beautiful taste for color, and it just needs to be complemented with a little bit more lighting, just a little bit more lighting characteristics. And that's cast shadows, blurriness of cast shadows, sharpness of cast shadows, and just respecting some of the core rules. Anywhere I would get a color corrector, and anywhere that does not touch light on this castle is going to get some of that purple. Because the castle is so bright. Have you ever seen white snow sort of get that shadow on it, any shadow on it, it turns purple right away. So if this castle is made with really, really light cement, it will inherit the color of the surrounding area. And some random purples in the foreground, you can do that as well to unify the canvas one more time. And I think this is like completely this is ready for a storybook. If you really want to go wild, you'll add the reflection of this castle on the water, but how would we do that? Let me try. Whoops. Flip vertical. Compress it just a little bit. Right there. Lower opacity. Ooh. Ooh. Okay. I just want a very, very slight reflection. Nothing crazy, because I want that storybook crayon, pencil crayon, oils look. So I don't want to go too crazy with that. And I like how bright that water is. I feel like this is just ruining the brightness. So I'm going to take away some of the reflection so that brightness comes back. But it really is looking like early Disney backgrounds. So pretty. Okay, so let's see, just to break that super dark area, add another strip of light in the midground with a figure or something. That's another strip of light? You mean right here? Whoops, whoa, whoa. Like right here? Yeah, that would be cool. Oh, some God rays would be really cool. Now it really looks like a Disney movie. Oh, wow, and that's why this area is bright. Oh, so pretty, so pretty. Wow. Now I wish I painted this. Oh, whoa, 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 that's wrong. Add glowy purple plants. Glowy purple plants fix everything. That's doing a thing to my eyes. It was established in the painting. She's just working at it. Mountains out of shot. Why does the hairline look unnatural to me? I don't know. The one that was fixed or the one that wasn't fixed? Not fixed, but changed. Yeah, it seems like a cell from an old opening shot of a Disney fairy tale. Yes. Yes, it does. I don't know which one to save. I think I'll save this one. Go back here. And then kind of just bring that down just a little bit. Because I kind of liked how dark it was, but I also like the distinction. Okay. So any extra changes that anyone thinks about? Anyone wants to think? Oh yeah, we have to think about the wash. One last thing. The wash of the image, like what is it really? I think it's blue. I think it's not purple at all, it's blue. So I'm just going to run that over everything. It's really going to balance everything one last time. So I'm just going to run some blue over the greens, over anything that's in the image, except the areas that are touched by the light. Those areas, I'm just going to try to give them a white instead. I don't want that warmth of the sunlight to interrupt anything. So I'm just going to give them that. And some of that blue over here. We see before, after is a little warm, and now that blue has unified everything one more time. If you want to take it to another level, you can give this some atmospheric fade. That would be really cool. But again, that's your choice. If you don't want it to be faded off into the distance, that's okay too. But you can also do that. If you have a character in this area right here that is pretty important, you want to just work on that character. So if there's a character right here, like some sort of Disney princess. I'm a Disney princess. Actually, no, let me just try to make it a little bit more elegant. Jesus Christ, that's right. Okay, and she's like walking towards something. I'm so sorry. And now this is a really good way to a really good chance to push that castle into the distance because it's no longer the main object. You actually need to make the castle seem a little bit larger than life if you shrink her. And now this light right here, this whole stage is just for her. And she's aligned with the symmetry line of the castle. That is how you fuck with a composition, man. That's how you do it. And then just give her a little bit of a reflection as well. But if she's not there, if there is no object there, let me actually Control C this. If there's no object here, you have no reason to throw this because this is a POI. So if you throw that in the distance, what do you have really? I might just leave a little bit of that fade. It's because there's a little bit extra darkness. And then you bring her back. Now she's like fighting with this castle. It's just too much is visible. Information overload on my eyes. I want one of them to be the important one. So if there's contrast here, there has to be zero contrast here. Your focal point is how you behave with your focal point. If you're good to your focal point will be good to you. Your painting will be readable and really, really easy on your viewer's eyes. And that's what will make people say, "Wow, this is beautiful." Merge down. Why is it doing that? Oh, merge down. Merge down. Alright, so just remember your focal point needs support. It's like your ADC. It needs support. It needs everyone to just help your ADC get kills. Alright, so your focal point needs to be supported by contrast, by lighting, by color. All the saturation needs to go to them, all the lighting needs to go to them, all the contrast needs to go to them, all the lines of sight and the pointers and the God rays need to go to them, all the sharpness and the cast shadows. Everything needs to go back to your focal point. Alright?